that filter through this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the hottest fishing hole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hi there, come on in. It's Thursday night, May 17th, the year 2001. May is Morel month in Michigan, and mushroom hunters are stalking through the woods. We'll talk about that for a minute, and we'll check out a commercial fishing boat in Lake Superior while we were fishing for lake trout. And for our main attraction, we'll have the birth of a pair of Whitetail Fawns captured on video by Bill Yoder. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost with a feature-packed show for this week's Practical Sportsman. When Bill Yoder saw this doe lying down in the pen and saw its nose was flared and it was straining, he knew she was about to have her fawns. Now, it was July 9th, 1998. She was a month past the normal due date for whitetails. Now, Bill had never seen a doe give birth, despite the fact that he's been raising deer for years. He said he always seemed to arrive a few minutes late, just in time to see the doe cleaning off the newborn fawn. This time, he hoped he'd see the whole sequence and even catch it on videotape. The doe moved around during the next few minutes, and Bill had to reposition the camera so he could see her while she was in labor. From a distance, he saw the fawn beginning to emerge from her body. Now, they come out head first, with their front legs preceding their head. Sometimes they're born when the doe is lying down, but oftentimes the doe gets up just before the fawn slides out. A few seconds later, the doe begins walking toward the camera. Bill had no idea where she was going or why. But when she turned, he could see that the fawn was half hanging from her body, then it dropped. Bill had to move the camera so he could get a clear angle on the newborn fawn, which appeared to have been born dead. The little body looked lifeless, as if the fall was too much for it to bear at that young age, but it was just beginning to come to life. The first few seconds after the birth, the fawn doesn't have enough strength to lift its head or even wiggle its wet, floppy ears. A fawn at this stage of life is vulnerable to every predator in the woods. It's helpless. All it can do is flounder. But remember, this fawn is not yet a minute old. It's been alive for a mere 40 seconds to be exact. Before it's been here for its first minute, the doe starts licking it off to remove any scent that might attract a predator. When it's clean, the fawn will have absolutely no odor that can be detected by a dog or fox or coyote, even if the predator comes within a few feet. Now, the fawn is exactly 1 minute old right now. The second minute of its life will be like going through a car wash. The doe wants to clean it up as thoroughly and as fast as possible. During this time, the fawn struggles to stretch its legs and gain as much strength as it can. This doe's name is Fawny, named by the woman who bottle-fed her when Fawny was a day-old fawn. The little fawn is now 2 minutes old, and even though it has no clue where its next meal is coming from, it's looking.
Where did I have it? I'm trying to find this bag.
About 10 minutes have passed. Bill turned the camera off momentarily to save batteries. The little fawn's coat looks relatively normal now, but it's not ready for a gymnastics meet or a figure skating competition. This is the fourth time Fawny has had fawns. The first year, she had a buck fawn. The second year, it was 2 buck fawns. The third year, it was a buck and a doe fawn. Bill will have to wait to check the gender of this one and to see if another fawn is on the way. 2 or 3 fawns is normal for a healthy, well-fed, mature whitetail doe. This little one is having quite a time trying to stand up. Oh, it wants to in the worst way, but for now it has to balance on its front knees. Oh, it might make it now. I guess not. I might mention that Bill Yoder raises deer and other big game animals such as elk and mule deer, and he takes them around the Midwest displaying them throughout the year. Probably takes a human a year or so to learn to do what this little whitetail fawn is doing after only 11 minutes. In the wild, deer don't have long to get their legs going so they can run. You can imagine how easy it would be for a predator to make a meal out of this little fawn right now.
There you go, buddy.
Frankly, the heaviest mortality from predators occurs when wildlife are babies, like this. They're practically defenseless. Now, the doe might try, but she oftentimes is not much help if the baby is attacked. Now that it can stand by itself, it's time for nourishment. The problem is it doesn't know where the cafeteria is located.
He's trying to find the bag. Right there, baby. There. Oh, there you go.
The little fawn is in the right place, but he still doesn't know where that super nutritious milk comes from. Even though he was only a couple inches away, it still took him a half a minute to locate the spigot.
There he goes. What's it been, about 5 minutes?
I didn't look at what time it was. It's about 10 minutes or 12 minutes too.
Bill and Kelly were so absorbed in what they saw that they forgot to check their watches.
He's gonna have another one.
About 12 minutes have passed since the first one was born. Now Fawny is once again experiencing contractions. Another fawn is on its way.
Here it comes.
Four minutes later, the contractions appear to be nearly constant. The time that a deer is in labor seems to be about 5 minutes or so. A very short time by human standards. Many women would give their right arms for the short labor period that a deer must endure. The little fawn seems real pleased with itself, being able to stand up on its own. Plus now it knows where its meals will be coming from. Now watch this move from splayed front legs to standing upright on all fours. Pretty cool for a deer that's only 17 or 18 minutes old. Well, it still needs some practice.
Fawny, lay down, she said.
Fawny is getting restless. She knows she's going to be dropping another fawn very soon, even before this one masters the skill of walking.
She ain't going very far. She had him standing up.
You're watching the interaction of a white-tailed doe and her newborn fawn less than 20 minutes after it was born. Bill Yoder told me that it was about this stage when he usually comes across the newly born fawns. It can happen any time, day or night, and it happens quickly. In just a few seconds, the birth of the second fawn will begin.
Maybe she ain't gonna have another one. Thought I seen a foot there.
There's a foot, see it?
No. It's moving.
Now Fawny is in full-fledged labor. It's her 7th time over the years, but she still shows the classic signs of straining and pushing, but not once did she utter a noise. That would only attract predators, which is the last thing a doe in labor wants to do. It's been a little more than a half minute since she laid down, and the fawn is making its way to the outside world. Now, if you want to start a countdown, we're at T-minus 60. 1 minute to go before the fawn will be on the ground.
Head first, anyhow. Here it comes. miracle of childbirth.
Well, Bill really means miracle of deer birth.
Push, push, push. Ooh.
Whoa.
Exactly 1.5 minutes after she laid down, she got back up and the water broke.
You almost look like you're dead when you're...
Why don't you just let them out?
See, uncomfortable. There it comes. Ooh, ooh. Head first.
If it looked dead a moment ago,
It
it really looks dead now. The way it's twisted and contorted, you really wonder if it's okay or if something went wrong. Its back looks broken. Could that be? Oh, that's a relief. The fawn is alive and okay. It was born 2 minutes and 10 seconds after the doe laid down. Like the first fawn, this one can only breathe and barely lift its head in the first few seconds after birth. It's not strong enough to do much of anything during its first minute of life, but that helpless condition improves fast. As a reminder of how fast they develop, look what comes trucking in to check out its new playmate. As it turned out, these fawns are sisters, one about 20 minutes older than the other. Bill Yoder told me that he names his fawns after family members, and these two doe fawns were named after his nieces, Emily and Melissa. Being the older sister, Emily gets around like a champ, walking on her oversized stilt legs. Melissa's only a minute and a half old right now. She still doesn't have the strength to raise her ears, but look at her sister. Emily can hold her ears up like a real deer. I thought what happened next was really interesting. Even though Mom was cleaning up Melissa, when Melissa saw Emily, she appeared to be trying to get over closer to her rather than nearer to Mom. Makes you wonder about the strength of maternal bonds versus the strength of sibling attraction. Of course, we don't know how well a baby deer can see at only a minute or two old. Well, there's a lot that we don't know about deer behavior, but we do know now exactly how fawns are born and what happens in the first few minutes after birth. Thanks to Bill Yoder and his trusty video camera, we got to witness a rarely observed mystery of the wild. 25 minutes after Emily was born, the family is together, and we now know where white-tailed deer really come from. Bill Yoder gets lots of calls at this time of year, especially in the next few weeks, by people who, they have good intentions, but they think fawns they find in the woods are abandoned or maybe lost. Not so. That mother knows exactly where they are, and she's undoubtedly watching you from a distance where she's well hidden. So please, leave the fawns alone, and besides, it's against the law to capture or possess a wild fawn for any reason without a permit. Well, now let's head up to the Upper Peninsula, where we'll take a small boat out on the big waters. We're backing our practical sportsman boat down the public ramp on the Chocolate River just east of Marquette. Fay Williams lives here. Fishing and hunting are his passions. And he said not too many anglers fish off the south shore of the bay at Marquette. That's a nice ramp, a little shallow in spots. You have to tilt your motor up some places. But once you hit the open water in Lake Superior, past the sandbars, there aren't any obstructions. Sandy bottom leading out to deep water. Think I can trim it down yet?
Yeah, go ahead, trim her down.
We're talking about using the electric power trim to tilt the outboard lower in the water. Now which way are we heading? Fay said I should look for 20 feet of water along the shore. The lake trout in late May come in for the smelt. Now we saw a commercial fisherman, Ted Thill from Marquette, whose family has fished these waters for 25 years. They're pulling whitefish out of the trap nets. Now trap nets do just what their name implies. They trap the fish live, and every other day the commercial fishermen come along and pull in the net, scooping out the live whitefish they're licensed to keep. And many of these whitefish are big, the size sport fishermen would love to catch, but they're difficult to catch on hook and line. Now those were lake trout they had to toss back, some of them trophy-sized, but the Linda Lee couldn't keep lake trout. It was our job as sport fishermen to rig up Cleos and spoons and body baits to try to catch them on hook and line. Now you can tell a seasoned fisherman. He bites the line where he wants to break it. Fay Williams is a seasoned Upper Peninsula fisherman. Now I clip on a body bait for something different. The lip of it will drive it down into deeper water, and it doesn't have a lot of action. It imitates a healthy swimming smelt. And that's what the lake trout are feeding on in late May. Now I use an open face spinning reel, 8-pound test line, and instead of holding the rod in my hand, I slip it into one of our new plastic rod holders. Now they tilt different directions. Just set the rod in the tube, close the ring around it, and when a fish hits, the rod will stay right there. Now good rod holders will let an angler fish 2 lines at once, which is a big advantage. I tell you, we know there are Lakers in here. It's 20 feet of water right now. Every now and then we're marking fish. Now they went about 16 feet. What would that be, Faye?
Probably
Herring? Salmon?
there's cohos and kings out here too. Hopefully we'll find out in just a few minutes.
Well, Fay Williams was hopeful, and so was I. But minutes stretched into hours, and we stretched out for an extremely pleasant boat ride on Lake Superior. Midday, we trailered the boat and drove to an inland lake a half-hour away. Now, if we couldn't catch those Great Lakes fish, we'd try the inland panfish that are getting ready to move on to their spawning beds. For the next few weeks, bluegills and crappies should be easy to catch most any place in Michigan. You can catch them from shore, but we anchored offshore and cast into the shallower water. Anchor down. Find a school, and they're easy to catch. Yeah, we got about 12 feet of water. Even in 12 feet of water, you'll find them a few feet under the surface in early spring. The float goes down, I set the hook, and the first bluegill comes aboard. Not a big one, but they aren't down very deep. I wonder if I fish deeper, if there'd be bigger ones deeper. Might have to try that. Well, how big does a bluegill have to be to keep it? Well, as big or as small as you care to fillet. It's your call. Okay, here's what we have for the rig. We have 2 split shots above a very small hook. I don't know if that's probably a number 12 hook. And this bobber rides up to the bobber stop right there, and it can't go any higher. And that's about 2.5 feet down maybe. So bobber slides up to the bobber stop, and these split shot are on here so that the bobber floats right about there in the water. So when it floats like that, I'm looking at the fluorescent tip, and when it goes down, moves it all. Set the hook and I got him. Now I'm fishing deeper, but the principle is the same. Any movement on this lightweight float, like right now it's moving to the left, a fish has my bait. So I set the hook and the bobber stays under. That's a good sign, because maybe this bluegill is a bigger one. Well, what do you think, Faye? This is a borderline job?
Yeah, borderline.
Well, borderline means that if the fishing is slow, we'll probably keep it. Fay Williams isn't using a bobber, just slack line, but he watches the line. If it tightens up quickly, he knows a fish grabbed the bait on his hook. Now there it goes. That's a fish.
A little bit better.
Yeah, it's better.
Swing it over.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Well, it's only a smidgen bigger than the others, but big enough to fillet and fry at the end of the day. And catching these fish is fun. Oh, we found the spot. Now these are borderline, but we've decided we're going to call them keepers because they're so good to eat. Now, catching them on a rig, I moved my bobber stop down to about 12 feet. Look at that. Look what we got there, Johnny. Look. See, we're starting to stack them up now. Bluegills and pumpkin seeds. But we're here in about 15 feet of water. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there are fish you can see being marked right off the bottom, like in 12 feet.
Uh-huh.
Can you see it there? Or do you have to get around a little closer?
No, I can see it.
As you can see him marking right in there, a solid red line off of the bottom. I mean, there's fish right underneath there, a school of them. So I've set my bobber stop to be about 12 feet. I'm going right over and drop it right over the side of the boat. Bluegills in the spring, they're scrappy, tasty, and easy to catch. I like that in a fish. Trout fishing really hasn't changed in the past 18 years, or the past 81 years for that matter. Well, at least as far as the trout go and the techniques and what they eat. What has changed in Michigan are the laws pertaining to access to streams if you're wading. You either need permission from the landowner who has a stream running through his property, or you can use public land, you know, federal or state land, and you can access that freely. Just get a map book, find out where that is, and find your own hot spots. Another thing that hasn't changed in 81 or 810 years, I think, is morel hunting, hunting for morel mushrooms. Larry Lonick, otherwise known as Tree, because he's really tall, gave me a lesson in morel hunting back in 1983, and nothing on the morel scene has changed since then. Now, these morels are not always large. Look at this teeny little one right here. Is this big enough to pick, Tree?
Definitely big enough to pick. Big enough to eat. Hard to see that size sometimes.
Now, if we would have let this stay here for a while, would it have grown larger?
That's probably the size it's going to stay.
Right here.
They pop up to that size and stay that way until they deteriorate.
How long does it take for them to pop out of the ground? You know, I hear that they can do it overnight.
I've never seen anybody see one pop out. They happen that fast. It can be overnight, can be during the day, and they just that fast and they're out of the ground. They pop up to the size they're going to stay until they deteriorate.
Here's one over here.
Deteriorating.
Is that what? You got to watch it here. We might have some more. Right here.
There's one behind us too.
That's deteriorated.
That's just starting to deteriorate.
Right, let me pick that
mushroom
here.
was probably 3 or 4 days old, and in the sun, you can see how that stem is starting to dry, and it fell over off of its stem.
Yeah, well, it does feel drier. Now, is that okay to pick and eat?
It's still good as long as they're dry. As a matter of fact, one of the methods of preserving them is to string them together and dry them in the fresh air and sunshine. It's an excellent way to dry.
There was another one around here. Oh, you had your hand on it right here.
Just
This
lean
one
down
right there. That's it, the morel mushroom. The object of an extensive hunt during the month of May in Michigan outdoors. As this show draws to a close, remember, there's always next week, same time, same station, right here. See you then. Pull it.
No bird.
Look at her sister. Emily can hold her ears up like a real deer. I thought what happened next was really interesting. Even though Mom was cleaning up Melissa, when Melissa saw Emily, she appeared to be trying to get over closer to her rather than nearer to Mom. Makes you wonder about the strength of maternal bonds versus the strength of sibling attraction. Of course, we don't know how well a baby deer can see at only a minute or two old. Well, there's a lot that we don't know about deer behavior, but we do know now exactly how fawns are born and what happens in the first few minutes after birth. Thanks to Bill Yoder and his trusty video camera, we got to witness a rarely observed mystery of the wild. 25 minutes after Emily was born, the family is together, and we now know where white-tailed deer really come from.